everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Vityl Vinyl. My name is Vernon Smith, and I'm going to be talking about records, my records, ones that I have. If this is your first time here at the program, welcome aboard. If you're a long-time watcher of this program that's showing its premiere episode, welcome back. Glad you're here. So like I said, my name is Vernon Smith. I write and draw comic books and children's books. A couple ones that I've done are graphic novel Bigfoot Frankenstein and children's book The Littlest Streetcar. It's not really about that, but whenever I am working, I like listening to music. But I don't stream things, because if I do, I'll lose track of time, and next thing I know, I'm just been sitting for 10 hours not moving, and when you're getting older, that's not a good thing to do. So I've always just I'd play like a whole album at a time, just so whenever it's over, 30-40 minutes have gone by, and I know to get up, walk around, do something, maybe like do something around the house, whatever. But it's usually, it's always just been digital, like stuff on my old iPod Classic that I've listened to. I used to be a record collector when I was younger. When I was 14, I got into buying vinyl. It's like back in 1988. And I was a little skateboarding punk rock kid, and friends of mine who were also into that, they were into music and they got me into it. And CDs were kind of coming up around that time. That's what most people were listening to, but these guys were listening to albums, and a lot of the bands, they're like these small indie labels, and they were just putting stuff out on vinyl, and just fell in love with the format. Like, I like the size of it, like the inserts, pictures, all that stuff. It was like just cooler when it's larger than in just a little CD or cassette form. So I really got into that, and I had hundreds and hundreds of records. Had like a big rack stereo component system, giant floor speakers, like the tower speakers. And then in 2005, because I'm from New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina hit. My place got 9 feet of water, so all my records, my stereo, everything got trashed. And I was like, I am not going to start over at age 30. That would be ridiculous. So here I am at age 48, starting over. Because I got my daughter a record player for her birthday a couple of months ago, like earlier this year, and it kind of just reignited my interest in the whole thing. And I'd picked up some albums here and there that I'd had before that like looked cool and stuff, or that I'd listened to and I heard that I liked. If I'd see it on vinyl, I'd pick them up. So I've got some things, and I've been trying to pick up some stuff here and there recently too. Picked up a record player, and I guess I'll do a little walkthrough in a bit on my current system. And just really got back into the format and into the music. And so that's what this is going to be about. It's not going to be scripted at all. Basically just gonna go through what I got and talk about, the bands, the album, maybe like how that like influenced my life at the time, just some stories of old music scene stuff from New Orleans from the late 80s to mid to late 90s. Welcome aboard. Enjoy the ride. It's gonna be filled with thrills and spills and chills. Later. Alright, so now that you've gotten to know me, now you get to know my stereo. It's a modest little setup. Got an Audio-Technica LP3 turntable, fully automatic.
It's an entry-level turntable, but it is totally kick-ass. It gets the job done, sounds amazing, pretty sturdy. Got a removable dust cover, cartridge you can change out, adjustable tone arm, counterweight, anti-skating, and all that stuff. It's got a preamp in it, so you could plug it into speakers and go, but I've got mine plugged into an old Optimus receiver. It's pretty kick-ass as well. It's from the mid-90s, so kind of doing the old vintage component home stereo setup here. I wanted to go like the more brushed aluminum, like the silver ones that like my parents had when I was a kid, from like the 70s and 80s, with like the wood trim on the side and top. But I didn't know if you could hook up like a CD player to those, or plug in like an iPod or an iPhone into it. So, and since I do have a handful of CDs, but I do have a bunch of stuff on that little iPod there, and stuff on my phone that I'd like to play through my system. So I didn't know if you could hook that up. You probably can. So maybe I'll go that route. But for now, don't really need to, because this little guy kicks ace. There's a couple of random CDs down there, and some record cleaner, and even a little level, that little orange thing there. And coming out of the headphone jack is actually a jack that connects it to some surround sound bookshelf computer speakers, just to kind of enhance the sound, but most of the sound comes from these bad boys, these Advent Laureate speakers. They're like these 3-foot tall tower speakers from the early 90s, I think like 92, 93, something like that. So yeah, kind of keeping with the old school style component stereo setup. And I guess at this point, even an iPod is vintage, since this thing's like almost 20 years old. But I don't think it's vintage if you're the original owner. I think it's vintage if you buy it from someone else. If you've just had it the whole time, then I guess it's just old. I don't know. But still works, still kicks ass. And that's plugged into the back of the receiver, so I can play that through it as well. There's my records, and there's some 7-inchers down there. Probably won't really get into those unless like I spend an episode talking about all of them, because I only have a handful of them. There's a little display stand for the record in case I don't know what's playing. I can look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's what it is. I knew those sounds sounded familiar. So one thing I did with these speakers was, when I first got them, they did have a bit of rot on the woofer surrounds, which I can show what those are for those that don't know what that is, which is probably none of y'all. Not because y'all are all experts, but because there's probably not really anyone watching at this point. But yeah, it's like these little surround part right there, and they were rotted out, so I had to get a kit from this place called Simply Speakers, and they got a couple of videos up on the YouTube, so I was able to do that because I'd never done it before. But took like an hour or two, mostly just scraping the glue off of the speakers from the old rotted out surrounds. But yeah, got it done in an evening, let it dry overnight, popped it back in, and they sound amazing. So yeah, that's it. So now you see what it is that I listen to, and I'm sure you can sleep better at nights now. Alright, catch you on the other side of this.
Welcome back. Wasn't that exciting? Yeah, so I didn't mention this before, but as far as like my record collection goes, I'm not like a big audiophile. I'm not a like collector. Like I don't need for everything to be a first pressing or certain pressing plant, certain edition, limited, any of that stuff. I just like the format of albums of vinyl. So if it's a current pressing that just came out, if it's a bootleg pressing of something that's out of print, yeah, that's just what I'm into. So there are a few things that I've picked up like limited editions of or like original releases of if it's something that's like really personal to me for a certain reason. But for the most part, these are just like current editions or even bootlegs, like I said, if they're out of print. So yeah, that's it for the introduction. Hope you stick around and we'll see each other later.